Thank you so very much for being back. And just before we went for that quick break, of course, we were speaking to the issue of banditry, insurgency, and the miraculous escape of schoolgirls that were abducted in Niger State, and equally those abducted at the CAC Church at what's the state now?
That's Kwara State.
Kwara State, yeah, exactly. So we still have a Barrister Vance Ufeli. Thank you so very much, Barrister, for being here. We sincerely apologize for the little break. So we were actually speaking to this issue just before we had that break. So you might just continue from where we stopped. Yes.
I said the speedy recovery of the victims is as a result of the payment of ransom, which the government have done. Because in this country, the Nigerian government have found it very difficult to address insurgency. Rather, they are using the state resources to pay their way through. You know, this government don't want to look incompetent. That is why it can go as far as spending whatever it is you want to think. It's within its disposal to ensure that it sustains the facade that it has competence. Especially now that the international community is beaming its torchlight on the insecurity issue in Nigeria. So government will stop at nothing to ensure that they're able to. But it's still not working because, I mean, instead of you to create a security architecture that can prevent occurrence, you are rather spending resources to recover after occurrence, which in itself is not good. And this also goes to show you that if the government really want to fight insecurity, it can actually do it. It can actually put up resistance against insecurity. But because of politics and then because of all manners of complications that even the public don't know about, this insecurity persists. And so right now, are we supposed to hail the government for this is this success or for this recovery? Are we supposed to be indifferent? Or are we supposed to say that insurgency has ended in Nigeria suddenly as a result of this recovery? I do not know where you stand. I don't know where the public stand. But I do not think that this is a cure to the problem of insecurity in Nigeria.
Right. We have seen that 100 policemen have
100,000.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. 100,000 policemen have been, withdrawn from VIP protection. So, do you think allocating these officers will genuinely help reduce the mass abduction crisis? Do you think we would have,
Well, having more policemen on patrol and on the sensitive issue will go a long way to perhaps increase intelligence and then get at least substantial amount of the policemen you recruit to the public space. Because before now, almost half of them are not in the public space, they are for VIPs who can pay for security. So that is what has been. And even this one I said they are knowing 10,000. Most times it's just a news item. This 10,000.
100,000 actually, Barrister.
100,000.
Sorry, this 100,000. I said most times it's just a news item. This 100,000, before you know it, they are back to their VIP posts. Okay? Because Nigeria is about who can pay for what, when, and how. So the general public live at the mercy of criminals. Okay? So right now, because of this whole international involvement, government is doing everything it can do to ensure that we will look good out there. But you see, there's no serious attempt to sustain security, to sustain whatever it is we have. And that's the painful thing about it. It shows everywhere we go. Our solutions are very temporary. Our solutions are not sustainable. They are not firm enough as it should, because the value the government places on the citizens of this country is not Not anything to write home about. That is just the pure truth.
All right, Barrister, I would love us to get to the crux of the matter here. Now, this is one part of the analysis lots of media houses, I mean legacy media houses in Nigeria, try as much as they can to avoid, and that is the issue of complicity. From those who have analyzed this issue, security experts, former military experts and all, they've said that there is a strong complicity of those in power. In fact, someone on social media alleged, a very good security expert said President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed a treaty with terrorists. And so the rumor goes on and on and on. What do you think is the problem? Because every other time we seem to treat this terrorist with kid gloves. But when the protester comes out to say, end bad governance, he is sent to correctional centers. Speak to me on the issue of complicity.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's complicity. I listened to the Pastor Ladi Thompson on this security issue, he has considerable knowledge on security issues and security matters in Nigeria, and has served at the AU on that same issue. He made that statement that there's a treaty signed by Bola Tinubu and the insurgents and the rest of that, except that there was no evidence to show. There was no material evidence, let me put it that way. He left that interview and the viewers with circumstantial evidence, which oftentimes may not be the best evidence in matters as weighty as this. Okay, so, but I mean, from all indications, without material evidence, from all indications, why is it that leaders, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, cannot take a decisive decision on insecurity? Even if there's no treaty, I will believe that there's a treaty. Yes, I choose to believe that there's a treaty. Whether my belief is based on error or based on whatsoever, I will believe it. Because there's no reason. There's no reason why your government will be going down, you are losing popularity, you are being vilified, international community, everyone is calling on you to do what you ought to do as a leader, and you're unable to do it. With all the powers at your disposal, with all the, all the energy and the resources you have, you are not able to perform, you are just there. It speaks to one thing. It speaks to only one thing, that there's an agreement or there's a covenant somewhere, cut somewhere, that if you act beyond your limit, you will be visited or whatsoever. That's the only interpretation I can give to it, in the absence of evidence, because from all indication, it appears that there are persons who are remoting this insecurity, who cannot be touched, who, if you touch them, it will cost you your second term, or even the current position you are. So that's exactly what is going on. So, and we are being told that this insecurity thing goes beyond the proliferation of Islamic fundamentalism. That, there's an orchestrated plan somewhere to, usurp the entire country and take over the whole of the West African sub-region for the purposes of so that is an extended discussion. The primary issue we need to address now is, how do we curtail, defeat, and turn back this evil that is coming? Okay, government will have to answer that question. For the citizen, theirs is to pay their taxes, do their part of their responsibilities, put forth that, and then government is expected, under obligation, to protect them. Whether there is a conspiracy to bring down the heavens, it's not the citizens' business. The business of government is to ensure that the heavens does not fall, or whatever it is that is harm, that is imminent, that is coming, is averted. Okay. Now, which is cheaper? These children that were rescued, after kidnapped, with the horrible experience they've gone through, which is cheaper? To prevent their abduction or to allow them to be abducted because of lack of security and then go rescue them, and then pay a huge amount of money and the rest of that. So you see that we're better under the preventive net than to be cast, the face of insecurity just so that when people are taking, you not go after. And so this whole thing is not making sense at all.
It's not making sense. And still on the issue, the Inspector General of Police has been tasked by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that about 30,000 new police personnel are recruited into the service. And equally, the military are hoping to get 24,000 people. They said that 10,000 that they had already had on board went away. And therefore, they said if Nigerians refuse to enlist with the military, that every young man above the age of 18 would be forced to serve with the military. Do you think that would ever come to fruition in Nigeria anytime soon?
That will lead to more confusion, because if you force people against their will to be enlisted in the army or in the police, then it's an invitation to chaos. It's an invitation to crisis, because this person you are going to force against their will to join the army, then you give them gun later on. The ones that join willingly are using the gun to shoot people, to kill people recklessly. Then you now force people to join. By the time they join, you will not be able to handle the crisis that will follow it. Yes, because you have not sanitized the army, you have not sanitized the police. You don't have plans for them. Their barracks are always dirty. Their uniforms are dirty. They cannot dress well. They cannot eat well. They cannot bathe well. Their children cannot go to good school. You have turned them to refugees. Then you are now asking people who are living their normal life that they should come and join. Many of them were excited. They joined when they saw the texture, when they saw the texture and the temperament of welfare and service. They all left. Yes. Former Governor Joseph Kalu was on Arise TV yesterday on Politics Sunday to complain about the fact that he was even telling Shehu that when the government put out vacancy for police, why didn't Shehu apply? So it has got, the federal government is that desperate. See, when you have frustrated people for so long, when your human beings lose faith in you, there's no amount of program you organize that will interest them. That's exactly what is going on. You see these people that all these people that applied and you cannot find them any longer. Just go around in the afternoon, just go around the Bet Naija shop. You see them at the Bet Naija shop playing bet. You understand? Some of them are doing Yahoo and the rest of that. Some of them are in Paraga joints as early as 6:30 drinking their sorrows away. So when you have frustrated people to that point, what exactly do you want them to do? To join your army where you are, that is infested with insurgents? Is that the army they should join? Didn't they watch how the general was killed a few days ago? How was he killed? He made a call. He made a video WhatsApp call to let the army to know where exactly he is. It was that same call that some people in the army used to inform ISWAP about his location. That same thing is what they use. What led to his death actually came from the army. Just when he thought they were coming for his rescue, he never knew was the enemy that was coming. So that's the one that you are asking people to rush to go and jump. There was a time in this country where people applied to the Nigerian army, they were never taken. I remember I have a brother that was very athletic, had all the composure. If you see him, you say this one could have made it to the army and the rest of that. He did everything, passed all the training, they did not take him. Changed his name from this into Hausa name. They still didn't take him. Today, now you're not asking people to rush. What's the motivation exactly? Do you have health insurance for them? What's the welfare like? You understand? A lot of people rush into the United States Army because of the welfare that surrounds it and what is in it for them and their future. in the case of Nigeria, there's nothing in it. You don't get much out of it. Our parents served the army. I know what it was like. My dad served the army for 26 years. And as the time he left after 26 years, I don't think he wanted any of us to be part of it. You understand? So people will join if they want to join. But if you want to force them, and then for government officials to go around TV stations to be telling presenters that why didn't they apply and the rest of that, it's unfortunate. Their children, his children should be enlisted. All the politicians should bring their children and enlist them first, then we'll follow.
So do you think it's going to be possible, even if they bring their children to be part of the...
It's just part of it. And funnily, as we speak, there are the contractors actually recruiting Nigerians into the Ukraine and the Russian military, fighting themselves. And Nigerians right now are serving with the Ukrainian army. Some are serving with the Russian contractors too.
That means they even prefer being
So they prefer to get killed in Russia or Ukraine than have themselves, do the thing that they do here in Nigeria. But Barrister, I would love us to go into some legal understanding of some things we have from the newspapers. Can I say unfortunately, because the newspapers is taken over by Nest Oil Limited, all through the front pages of all the newspapers. I'd love you to help us make some sense out of that. And it is on the issue of alleged $1 billion Nest Oil debt claim. First Bank, Access Bank, Zenith Bank MDs risk imprisonment over alleged disobedience of court order. Help us make sense of this issue. Of course, it's alleged that Nest Oil owner is owing about $1 billion, and he said he is not owing that sort of amount, and so many other issues. But it's a legal issue. Help us, at least for those who might not understand what's happening there.
Yeah, that issue. I was talking on that issue some time ago at the News Central. What I read from that story is that there's the bank have records to the effect that there's a loan that was taken for which its principal sum and interest cumulatively have reached the figure which you mentioned. Okay, but Nest Oil itself is saying that it cannot remember owing such amount of money, and that whatever it is that have been put forth were false, were inflated figures, and that there is a grand conspiracy and fraud around this whole arrangement, that some persons want to sabotage the company and the rest of that. Okay, so they are embroiled in this crisis. The details will definitely be resolved by the court, because none of us, not First Bank, not TV station, not Nest Oil himself can solve the problem until they subject that conflict to legal battle. The matter is already been determined in a way, two ways. Either it is settled out of court, or the court will look into it, and then this is even though it's making it to the news, but it's primarily a private company versus the bank and loan and the rest of that. So that's as much I can say about it.
How do you think, okay, let me put it this way, how does the banking dispute impact, right? How does this banking dispute impact public confidence in financial institutions? I don't know if this is well structured.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Barrister? Sorry.
I got it here. You are talking about how disputes like this bank impact on
between them,
public confidence in the bank and all that. Perception and all that. See, the truth is that whichever way you look at it, as long as a bank is a going concern and as long as it has recapitalized, there's public confidence in the bank. Financial experts will tell you that if a bank or a financial institution have met all its expectations and have met all the conditions for which it should exist, then it's a going concern. There should be public confidence in it, on it and the rest of that, so that a bank is being owed, okay, does not really affect public confidence, except the bank is under recession. It's not able to carry on business, and is becoming an ongoing concern, and it has made or filed for liquidation. Okay, but the financial institution does not run like just an ordinary company. There's an NDIC that ensure deposit funds. Okay, and there's a recapitalization process wherein the Central Bank of Nigeria regulates the commercial banks to the extent that it keeps it healthy as long as the bank is a going concern. So to that extent, to the regulatory concerns and all that there's loan somewhere from a company, private company, and the banks are embroiled in that, and they're trying to find a way out of it, and that does not affect public confidence. The only thing that affects public confidence is when the depositors discover that there's a tendency that they may lose their money, or you will now have a panic withdrawal, and you now have things like that. But all those issues have been taken care of by regulatory authorities right now, so we cannot run into that. It was during the military era, at the time of Abacha and the rest of that, when banks were being, when the strict regulation came up, that you had that panic withdrawal thing. It's no longer so. There's stability now in financial institutions in Nigeria.
But speak to us on the issue of, just before we leave for this particular segment, speak to us on the issue of this affecting the opportunities for unicorns in Nigeria. We have lots of countries with very sustainable, valuable unicorns. That is companies with over $1 billion as their net worth and all. It is not happening very soon in Nigeria. We hardly get to see, it's just 1 or 2 or 3. So don't you think that the government is equally making it a bit difficult for Nigerian entrepreneurs, blue chip companies to become unicorns and compete globally with the world?
No, you have to look at the size of your economy. The unicorns we are talking about, you are referring to companies in America, in the UK, in very big, very large economies. Look at one company in America, its GDP is more than that of the whole Nigeria. Microsoft, for example, Microsoft GDP is more than the GDP of Nigeria. So if you have Microsoft in a country, of course, that country, if you have the likes of Microsoft in a country, maybe like 20, you understand? That impacts on the GDP of the country. Yeah. So is it a country that have no light, no electricity at all, that will provide unicorns? I mean, you have 1 or 2 of them, the likes of Coca-Cola and the rest of that. Okay, the likes of NLNG, the likes of, you have some of them, okay, but they can only be as scanty as the GDP of Nigeria, because Nigeria is not an investment destination. It's not a mecca of sorts of investment. You ask those who are experts in investment, they will tell you about it. First, we're talking about a deluge of insecurity. The companies that can go to Nigeria now are only Indian companies, Lebanese companies, and Chinese companies, who sometimes have the same dubious tendencies. So they can sustain and succeed under some dubious environment. Okay, you cannot find. I mean, how many companies have you seen, moving into sites in Nigeria, if it's not Chinese or Lebanese? And what are they really doing? If it's not illegal mining, it is that they are opening supermarkets. Okay, buying and selling, which is not even a sustainable economic trust. Okay, and the rest of that. The few ones that were there before, the likes of ShopRite, had to leave because the economy was strangulating. Okay, so if Nigeria want to take investment very serious, we have to restore electricity and go back to manufacturing. That is it. You see this manufacturing that the Chinese are doing in Nigeria, where they are buying the whole of Ogun State to start manufacturing, that they will use diesel to manufacture products. How much will they sell those products? So you see that inflation, we keep, there's a nexus between electricity and inflation. As long as people have to spend so much to the point that when the goods finally comes out, what it will take to purchase it will be as high as what it will take to purchase if it had been imported. Then you now ask yourself, what is the essence? What is the essence if I produce this in my country and after the shipping cost, the excise duty and all that, I'll sell it this amount and I produce it here. I produce it here with the high cost of production, the running cost, and I will still sell it. So see, Nigeria is not viable for investment. It has to go through some transformation, some reforms, critical economic reforms, one of which is electricity, the second which is security, electricity security. You don't have those two, and you're talking about unicorns, it's not going to work. It will not work.
Not work. There's just a few you mentioned amongst the many judicial reforms. You know, investors would love to be sure that when they have issues, they run to the court, they will get, you know, the right kind of judgment and many other, you know, issues here and there. But that's just about the time we have for this segment. Please don't go anywhere. When we return, this judgment is void. A lawyer breaks a silence on Kanu's life sentence. That in a beat is still Enterprise Morning.
We'll be right back.